Hey everybody, welcome to the Tom Parsley channel, where just like Parsley we get into a little bit of everything. So let's see what we get into today. So today we are at Robert Moses State Park on Long Island, and we're going to take a walk over to the Fire Island Lighthouse, which is right behind me. This parking lot right behind me here is called Field 5 parking lot. You can park there, and you notice that we are on a boardwalk right behind us over here. This boardwalk is going to go all the way to the lighthouse. So let's take a short walk on a lighthouse path over here. We'll get to the lighthouse. We'll talk a little bit about Long Island. We'll talk about barrier beaches, lighthouses, and see what we get into today. So come along with me. All right, so we're going to start right over here. We'll take a look at the signage over here. We got the Fire Island Lighthouse, which is open. You can go visit, walk up to the top. There's a spiral staircase that goes up to the top. Tower tours, and a little bit of what you would see along the way. So from the boardwalk, you can see there's a lot of vegetation and undergrowth in the background over here. We've got cedars over here. We've got some dune grasses over here. We've got the sand dune right over there, and some more cedars right over here. And you can just about see, I'll spin around and show you a little bit closer, but all this red right down here is all poison ivy. So good thing we're on this boardwalk so we don't get into poison ivy over here. And it's a pretty popular trail here, so there's a lot of people. So there's the lighthouse all the way over in the distance over there. So as we're walking down here, we could see right off to the side over here. Let me see if I could zoom in a little bit. Okay, so right about over here is that bayberry with the white berries. We're going to zoom in on those white berries over there. Right about over there. See them all? Those white berries right in the center of the field there. Those are whitish because there's a waxy coating over the berries. And if you could buy bayberry scented candles, that's what it smells like. So if we zoom back out and we just pan right over here, we zoom into the cedars, you can see the berries are this bright blue color. It's really, really pretty. And yeah, if you crush them, they do have that kind of cedary smell. And all down in here, all this red color is all poison ivy down over here. So there's a lot going on in here. That's why it's really nice to be on the boardwalk over here, because as you're walking, you're up above all the poison ivy and ticks and everything down in here is still all native and wild and growing. Cedars, grasses, bayberry. You can see the white berries all along over here. Poison ivy, and maybe we'll come across a deer. Who knows? And as we're walking, we're just walking slowly, ever so slowly, closer to that lighthouse over there. And again, the sand dune is right over there. So at some point, we'll be able to see over the sand dune and check out the ocean. More bayberries over here, those white berries, cedars, and more bayberry over here on this side. And this grass over here, this is called Phragmites. Phragmites is a kind of a grassy rush. And the jury's kind of out on this Phragmites. Is it invasive? Is it just a species that comes into disturbed habitat? But wherever this is growing, there's fresh water. So down here, there's a little bit of fresh water because it doesn't grow in salt water. And sometimes when the ocean washes over that dune, we get a little bit of salt water in here. All right, let's continue down the path. So I wanted to stop here a little bit to show you the poison ivy. I'm not going to touch it, but this is poison ivy, leaves of 3. 1, 2, 3. Leave it be. It does turn a pretty color red in the fall, and there's a coating, there's an oil along the entire plant that we get an allergic reaction to. That's that itchiness, that rash. And so, you know, when the leaves fall off, the branches can still give you that that rash. So just you have to kind of know where poison ivy is or where you're going in poison ivy so you don't get poison ivy. So be careful. Look at this giant holly tree over here. Really, really cool. Really pretty. It's even got berries. So that means there's either this is the male or there's a female nearby. I forget which is which, but holly trees are also very common in what we would call a maritime forest over here. We've got pine trees, we've got poison ivy, we've got cedars, we've got grasses, we got the bayberry. We also have beach plums a little bit further down. This is all beach plum over here. It's a little bit late for the beach plum, but beach plums, you could pick them and eat them just like plums. And continue on, and there's still the lighthouse peeking out right beyond the trees over there. So we're going to continue on down. I'll try to give you a little close-up of those berries on the cedar trees there. What a pretty blue color. So nice. And then there's right in between over there, there's poison ivy right over there. Now this, you might think is poison ivy, but it's not. This is called Virginia creeper. This is a native vine. It looks similar, but notice the leaves here. There's 5 leaves here, whereas poison ivy has those 3 leaves. So even though they're the same color and they look alike, it's, you know, a lot of people get these two confused, but this is not, obviously I'm touching it, it's fine. You would get confused about that. And then we're just gonna keep on moving down, and it kind of really opens up past the dune over here. I was here after a really big storm when the sand dune was breached, and this was all inundated with ocean water. So it was kind of neat, but kind of sad to see it at the same time. And there's our destination. It's getting ever so close, our Fire Island Lighthouse. And as soon as we pass this pine tree over here, if you look over to your left, you're going to see a platform. Let me zoom in so you can see it, because I don't know how close we're going to get to it. There it is. So that platform is a viewing platform, because at this time of year, we have a lot of the migrations. Oh, the sun's in my eyes. We got a lot of migration coming through here. The butterflies, hawks, all kinds of raptors. And that platform over there is a really good spot to just kind of hang out with binoculars and check out everything that's coming through here. We kind of passed it now. We're getting close to Halloween, so the migration is kind of past, but you know, just something to keep an eye out, that observation platform is there to use. So all in here is all that beach grass right over here, the Ammophila breviligata. The root system is so deep and so thick that it's able to hold all the sand together and secure this entire back of the dune area. So remember before we were talking about the Virginia creeper, we hear all the berries of the Virginia creeper right there, the kind of bluish berries right there. And it's growing in and through all of this beach plum that's over here. These are all beach plums. There's the viewing platform over there, and there's our Fire Island Lighthouse right there. Let's continue. So these white flowers that are blooming over here, over here, over here. This is all called marsh elder. You'll see this growing at the high tide line because it can't handle a lot of the salt water, but it grows really well here. And you'll see a lot of the goldenrod is still blooming and growing all along in here. And again, we got our cedars, we got our bayberries, we got our beach plums, we got some phragmites over there, and there's that viewing platform right over there. So this is a good stop for the infographic over here. So the lighthouse, which is right here, was built in the late 1800s because the inlet, which is now here, used to be here. This whole length of land was filled in by what's known as littoral drift or offshore current. So this whole area here, these are all called barrier islands. So we're on a barrier island right now. They're very narrow, only a couple of 100 feet wide, if that, but very, very long. And all of these barrier beaches and barrier islands protect the mainland of Long Island, which is right over here. So this body of water in here is called Great South Bay. The Atlantic Ocean is over here. And because the waves hit the barrier island at an angle, creates a longshore current drift that just pulls sand all the way down and has eventually filled in this whole area. So when the lighthouse was built, the inlet was here, and now it's over here. So pretty cool. And what's interesting is we're walking along here, we transition from the state park to the national seashore part. You notice it's a different boardwalk, different walkway. The state park behind us had a little bit of a railing, a little bit of a wooden walkway, and this is more of that recycled plastic boardwalk. This is a nice view over here. As you're walking down the boardwalk over here, you get a good view of the lighthouse. And again, similar plants on both sides. We've got our cedars, we've got our phragmites, we've got some pine trees, we've got our bayberries, we've got our beach plums, we've got poison ivy. Like over here, this dead cedar tree is filled with poison ivy. Like if you didn't know that this was poison ivy, you would grab it and you would get poison ivy. And that would be a bad thing, so don't get poison ivy. Here's our marsh elder blooming over here, phragmites. We got a lot going on. Might be a little hard to see, but we've got some fresh water in here. There is some fresh water laying right on top of the salt water, and this is perpetually wet, especially during the rainy season when it rains. So this area definitely gets a lot of fresh water in here, hence why we have the boardwalk up here. So I didn't want to spook the deer, but there were 2 white-tailed deer just behind there. So one of the other neat things about this path is that you can download a, or I think it's on a piece of paper, I'm not sure, but there's numbered spots that will give you kind of a guided hike. So if you want to see what all this is about, you can. Right, so we're getting even closer to the lighthouse here. Just try to imagine that it was built in the late 1800s, and the inlet was right where we're standing right now, and all that was moved in. Now, fun fact about lighthouses, let me zoom into the top up over there. You could see that there is a light turning, and lighthouses do have a pattern. They have a visual pattern for during the day. Obviously, this is black on white on black, and at night the light has a signal pattern on how it blinks. So every lighthouse is unique in how it blinks. This one we'd have to can't really see it from where we are. It's just kind of reflecting the sunlight. We'd have to wait until it gets a little bit darker, but it does have a pattern. So there she is. There's the lighthouse. They are doing some repairs on the facade, you could see over there, and this is there's a museum inside there, and you could walk all the way up to the top if you were so inclined. But let's continue on down and get a little. All right, so we'll give you a little close up here. I got to zoom all the way up to the top there. That is one tall lighthouse. So every couple of years they have to repair what is it called, sparging, or the cement that goes around. So this is the original construction brick, and there's the inside. Hello. And eventually they just can put more cement over there, but every 10 years, 20 years or so, it has to be repaired because of cracks. And I mean, we are exposed in the ocean here, so salt spray and winters and ice and freezing definitely has its toll on the lighthouse here. So let's go over to the bay and see what the bay looks like. So we pretty much walked the whole way down. We're down here at the bay, so that's Great South Bay right behind me here. You could probably see a fishing boat behind me. It just kind of moved away over there. But you can see how narrow this barrier island really is. So this is the bay side, and just a couple of 100 feet that way is the ocean side. So there's really not much separating us from the ocean to the bay over here. And there's the lighthouse right over here. So behind us, you can kind of see the bridges that crosses over the bay. The twin span over there is Robert Moses Causeway, for lack of a better word, and then the one single span over here is again the same Robert Moses Causeway bridge to get us over to this bridge. So I keep saying Robert Moses. So who was Robert Moses? Robert Moses was one of the most influential, I guess, politicians, and the jury's out on whether he was good or bad, but he was able to procure a lot of this land to be made into state parks. He made a lot of highways, and so this park is named after him. He made the famous Jones Beach, which is a little further down that way. But without him, we wouldn't have all of these parks and open spaces. So I know the jury's out on him. You'll have to Google it and come to your own definition of what he was, if he was good or bad. And there's a really, really big book. It's called The Power Broker, about Robert Moses and how much power he really did have in New York State. So yeah, so if I didn't mention before, we are on Long Island. We're in Suffolk County. We're in New York State, and this is where, well, technically where we are is the National Seashore, but also the state park is right behind us. So all of that land that was filled in when the lighthouse, when the inlet was right here, all of this land that way is all a state park now. So the bay is pretty calm, so it's pretty nice out today, not too bad, but it is really windy. It's a good thing I have that cover on my mic, or else you'd really be hearing the wind. So so let's walk down the bay a little bit, and let's on the shoreline over here and see what we can. So this whole line over here is the high tide line. This is called a rack line, and this is where a lot of shells and critters would be washed up. This is all dried and dead eelgrass, Zostera marina, which is growing all out in the bay over there. And it's really important habitat for all kinds of crabs, shellfish, fish, everything. And there's a push to get eelgrass replanted in the beds here. And you'll also notice that this sand is purple, all this purple sand, because this purple sand, let me see if I can pull some up here. You can zoom in on it over here. That purple sand, focus, is garnet. Garnet is a very dense mineral. It is denser than the lighter quartz that's over here. So when the wind blows, the wind's going to blow the quartz away, and it's going to leave all that garnet sand behind. And notice the shape of all these grains are rounded off because, look at that. Hundreds and hundreds of years of that motion over and over and over again is what's causing those sand grains to be that rounded off color. And all the way down this whole way is all this rack line. This was the high tide line. Of course, the tide sometimes goes further up into the marsh back here, but you could see that it doesn't go much further because that Phragmites is freshwater limited. So we know that there's fresh water right there, and the salt water doesn't come too much higher than where I am right now. So we're just walking back up to the bay, back up to the lighthouse up over here. And we'll join back around when we're in front of that building over there. All right, so we pick back up in the front here by this is the museum over here, and you have access to walk up the lighthouse. But we're gonna walk over there to the shade a little bit, get out of the wind, and then do a little bit more of what's around us here. All right, out of the wind, out of the sun. Okay, so the trail that we were just on continues a little bit down past that house over there. Now, Fire Island is unique, let me turn you around, in that there are lots of communities all up and down this way. So Kismet is the first town, and then there's other towns, Ocean Beach, Atlantique, all these other towns that have summer rentals, and some people live there year round. But all along here, you could kind of see that the beach is right over there. The ocean is right over there. Once we get a little bit closer, I'll turn you around and zoom in a little bit. But we're just back here behind the shelter of the building over here, and then the lighthouse is way back over there. So barrier islands. Why are barrier islands important? Because barrier islands protect the mainland. So for us on Long Island, that barrier island is protecting us. So without this barrier island that we're sitting on right now, all of that ocean would just come right in and flood the entire South Shore. And these barrier islands move, so they constantly are shifting. So should you build something permanent on a shifting island? I don't know, but that's something for another day. So let me turn you around so we can see the ocean, and we'll zoom in a little bit over there. So just down that road over there, let me zoom in a little bit, is the ocean. And if we zoom in a little bit more, and zoom in a little bit more, you can see that the Atlantic Ocean is right over there, right down this little road here, and there's a little access road that goes right down the middle over there. And we're gonna just go back, there we go. There's that access road that goes down here. So you might see some school buses or trucks or people on bikes or something going back and forth, because that is an access road to go back down. Here comes a truck right now. So see a truck running right down that road, and there it goes. Okay, so let me turn you back around again. So I want to thank you all for coming on a little walk with us today. We did a little maritime forest, a little bit of barrier island, a little bit of ocean, bay, lighthouses, a little bit of local history. So a little bit of everything, right? So just like I said, Tom Parsley channel, we get into a little bit of everything, just like Parsley. So I want to thank you all for coming on the journey here, and don't forget those three things. I want you to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends, and I'll see you on the next video.